If you are headed to NAYC, make sure and stop by and say hi Thursday, July 24th from 2 to 3 p.m. over at the Crown Plaza Hotel, which is just right across from the stadium. We are going to be there along with Danny Jules, owner and CEO, Charity Walter, Elena Smith, a modest fashion inspiration, Savannah Pedigo, a singer and a songwriter, and Sophia Elms, a singer and a private chef. We will have exclusive Unashamedly You merch there, so make sure and stop by. We're also so excited to be a part of something that we have never done at NAYC, and that is a live podcast recording. This is going to be on Friday, July the 25th, starting at 2 p.m. with very limited seating. It's going to be featuring Charity Walter, Mandy Bowen, Ashton Quell, and myself. Both of these events are going to be taking place at the Crown Plaza Hotel, which is just right across from the stadium. I cannot wait to hug your neck and to see you there. Hello and welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast, a space to enlighten, encourage, and empower you to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. I am your host, Jamie Herndon. I pray you hear less of me and more of Him as you listen to today's episode. Let's grow together. Today's guest is someone that is highly esteemed throughout the apostolic movement. She is a true woman of God. She speaks with wisdom, and I am just honestly so honored that she agreed to be on the podcast today. So you may have heard more from her husband, Brother Daniel McKillop, who actually runs Kingdom Speak podcast. I think that this is more out of her comfort zone. She's not always on podcast. So I'm really grateful that she agreed to be on here. And I know that you are all going to glean so much by hearing from her. Ruth McKillop, what an honor to have you a part of the Unashamedly You podcast. If you'll take a moment, introduce yourself, and just tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Sister Jamie. This is definitely an honor. And I'm so glad we actually got to meet. We just chatted a minute before the podcast, and I told her I'd much rather meet over a lunch and I would cook if she would come. But it's truly an honor to be here today. I appreciate what she is doing and asking God to give her strength and bless her in her endeavors. But yes, I am Ruth McKillop, and I'm married to an incredible man, Daniel McKillop, for 26 years now. Can't believe it's been that long, but time does fly when you're having fun. And we have one son. His name is Jaron, and he is 17 years old now. And we adopted him as an infant from the beautiful country of Belize, Central America. So I live in a very rural area in Plaster Rock, New Brunswick, Canada. So we border the state of Maine. So my house is about 40 minutes from the actual border of Maine. So the internet says the population of Plaster Rock was 1,002 people in 2021. So I think we've grown a little bit, but I don't think we've topped the 1,100 mark. So we don't have any McDonald's, no Starbucks. We don't have my favorite. There's no Chick-fil-A here. We have one stoplight at a four-corner intersection, and it's not even your typical stoplight. It's just a blinking red light that ensures everybody stops. So we're very remote, very rural, but God has blessed us. I've been born and raised here, so this is, all I know, and God has blessed us in this part of the woods. It's kind of a joke. You drive through the woods and the woods and the woods and more woods, and then you come to Plaster Rock. So people don't just stop by Plaster Rock. They come on purpose. And we love it when people come. We really do. God has blessed us to pastor a wonderful group of people here in Plaster Rock. We have several daughter works, church schools. We're currently in a building project, building a new sanctuary, and we are hoping, with God's help, to move in by the end of the year. So a little bit about myself. I like to spend time with my family, and I enjoy cooking. I love to try new recipes, and I enjoy music, enjoy being outdoors. We have a very, very small summer season. So right now, I really enjoy being outside as much as I can. We have all of the seasons in full. We get snow, we have beautiful foliage in the fall, we have a nice spring, but we don't get a lengthy season of hot weather. We just have to soak it up while we have it.
For talking about hot weather, about what is the temperature for you guys for your summer?
It's going to run the 70s, 80. We have a few days that will hit hotter than that, but then it'll just plummet right back down. It doesn't sustain it. And we don't have humidity typically. Now, we've had a few days this year that have been a little more humid, but we don't have humidity like you do in the South.
We have a lot of humidity, and 70 sounds like our fall and spring. That sounds amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right now, you can't really walk outside without being soaking wet by the time you get to your vehicle here in the South and in Arkansas, but I wondered how your summers were. Those sound amazing.
Yes. And the evenings are nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is.
That's awesome. Well, you said you love to cook, and anybody that knows me, any at all, through the podcast or in person, usually knows that I can't really cook hardly at all, but I do love to eat and try new things. So we would
Oh,
be fast friends. I should come up there and we should meet over lunch sometime.
absolutely. It's a deal.
So, talking about summer and time swiftly moving, if you're like me, you keep thinking that every second, every minute, and every day, it really does count. We constantly hear phrases like, you have 18 summers with your babies, time is fleeting, it'll be gone before you know it. And we hear those things. So, especially as a mom, I feel like that we want to be present and intentional with our time and as much as possible. So, let's talk about some ways that maybe we can take some ownership of our time instead of just allowing it to slip away.
Wow. You made a statement, Sister Jamie, about being as intentional as possible. And you know what? That is a lifelong struggle. I really feel like that is something that you really have to be conscious of. And for me, it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing. I can easily get swept up in what I'm doing and you just have to keep reminding yourself, I need to stay intentional. I need to stay focused. I need to stay, and it's a daily thing. Maybe there are some people that have it conquered. And if they do, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with them, because it just seems like when you get something and go, oh, I think this works, then it's a new day and it's like, oh, I've got to change it for the day. So it is. I think we all long to be productive, and we need to be productive. I think that's an important thing. We need to be. And the truth is everyone is given the same amount of time. I can be, very quick to say, well, I think it's because she has more time than I do. That is not the truth. Everyone is given the same amount of time. And we must be wise in how we exchange our time. Time is one of the most valuable assets that we possess. And I'm going to quote William Penn: time is what we want most, but what we use the worst. Sometimes we can, be such poor managers of the time that we have been given. And a little over 10 years ago, my husband and I made a transition, literally, a literal transition. So my husband has pastored for probably 15 years, but my husband and I have always been heavily involved in church work since we were married. So this is going to be a very practical illustration, but we lived in about a 1,000 square foot home. that we purchased when we first got married. So the house that we are currently living in is about 4 times that size. So we had a tiny house before they were the cool model. That's kind of the thing to do now, is have a tiny house. Well, we had one before we realized it was the thing to do. And I could vacuum that whole house and, probably scrub too in about 30 minutes. And, but so when we moved from that tiny house to the house that we live in now, I was very overwhelmed. Our entire home would sit in one room of the house that we live in now. So my little system, back to having to be flexible, like my little system that worked did not work anymore. Like I couldn't even dig out the vacuum and get it to a room in 30 minutes. I felt like. So I really could feel myself being very overwhelmed. And then when I get overwhelmed, it's very easy to get frustrated. And I'm like, I've got to come up with a new plan. My old plan is just not going to cut it here. And the home that we moved into is the church parsonage. So it's directly across the road from the church. So a lot of distractions, a lot of, living in the glass house there's a little bit of truth to that. So you just feel like everything is running away from you instead of being maybe structured, having a plan, having a routine. I guess routine kind of went out the window. I felt like it did. And I was like, how am I going to get this back? So, I quickly realized that to incorporate a new system, I needed to learn how to prioritize my time. How was I going to allocate my time to these different areas? And I had to realize, okay, what is the most important? What is the most important? And that changes in seasons. When I moved into that house, my son was just little, and now he's 17. So, even just that season, little kids require a different measure of attention than teenagers do. They still require attention, but just in a little different way. I'm not tripping over toys anymore, but there's like a guitar sitting on the sofa in my house right now, and there's guitar picks on the, it's a different season. There's just, you have to just learn to calibrate to the different season. So time is the only non-renewable resource that we own. And if we want to treat it with respect, we need to set priorities. And I know this is a very, very practical, but you can always plant a new tree once one has been chopped down. If you need to tap into your emergency savings, you can replenish that money. Or if your home gets destroyed, as sad as that is, you can rebuild a new home. But once time has passed, you can never get it back.
That's so true. And I love that you said earlier that it's the one thing that we have the least of. And sometimes, it's the thing that we want the most, but we spend it the worst.
Yes.
And how true that is. How do you decide? You were talking about, making sure that you have those priorities in line. How do you decide what's truly worth your time versus something that you can give up?
Oh, you know what? That's a very, very difficult question. And I for me personally, that has changed. That has changed. There are some things that I would have invested a lot more time in my younger years that now I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to it doesn't mean that much to me now. I think when you get older and you realize it's people and relationships that matter. And I can't really tell you a lot about the details of my childhood, about the decorations in my family home but it's the relationships that were built and the time spent investing. And, my personality would be to be a doer. I like to do. Like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And while that's in there, I'm going to do this and I'm going to, and I like that visual, maybe accomplishment of, I got this done, I got that done, the laundry's all folded, the floors are clean, the dishwasher's empty, supper's in the crock pot, the visual. And but you know what? There are some days when I could not give you a visual list of anything that I accomplished. But you know what? If I spent time talking with somebody that was hurting, that was in need, that can be a sister, a friend, a child. That's productivity. Productivity isn't always visual. Sometimes it's very invisible, but you still have to recognize it at the end of the day in, you know what? I did accomplish something. Just because it wasn't all the things that I wanted to get done. If I accomplished what mattered the most in the moment, I think that that's what's most important. And back to your question about how do you decide that? I think keeping our main goal in focus. And I run this filter by some things, in the light of eternity, does this really matter? Does this really matter? If it doesn't, you know what? Maybe I just don't have time for that today. I'm going to have to let that go so that I can do something maybe more profitable.
I've heard the term someone has said before, the five goal. Like, if it's not gonna matter in 5 minutes, in, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, like, how much time are you devoting to something? Sometimes we'll devote so much time to thoughts or to things that we're putting all this time and effort and energy in, and we're letting other things go that, in 5 years, we're not even gonna remember this at all. Even in 5 months, 5 weeks, anything that you can think of in the terms of 5 and time. It's like, but in 5 years, if I would have let this go and worried about these other things over here, would they be mattering more?
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. You are so right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that goes a lot of times to, like I had mentioned, the thoughts. Like, sometimes we can let our thoughts run rampant on things that in, you know, 5 days, we're not even gonna remember it again, or it's not even gonna matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's distractions. Absolutely. And I feel like we are living in a day when there are so many distractions on every level. Every level.
Completely. And I know that you have talked about, like, those as time thieves, just something that's just stealing our times. What are some of those common time thieves that even some of them they can go unnoticed? We don't even realize that they're stealing time away from us, which is such a precious thing that God has given us, and we are wasting it. It's just being gone.
Absolutely. And again, I think time thieves are something that are going to be different for each person. Like probably the time thieves that I would struggle with, my son doesn't struggle with, or my mother doesn't struggle with. So I think they can change. I think our society right now, we could identify a few as text messages, emails. One thing that was a deal for me is planning. Okay. I could take more time planning what we were going to do than it would take to do what we were going to do. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's just hone it back here. Like, let's make it doable. Like, I'm worried about this and I'm spending 3 days thinking about what I'm going to do for the meal for the company that's coming on Friday. when I could prepare that meal in a couple hours. Like, you can just make it more than what it is. And I've really had to go, okay, keep this what it is. Like, keep some guardrails on this. Because you can. And I mean, there's so much exposure, and you can make it as big as you want to make it, or you can bring it in and make it as small and still get the same results. Because when they sit down at the table, they're really not going to know if I spent 3 days in preparation or 30 minutes. Now, maybe in the taste of the food, but it was undue pressure I was putting on myself, stealing a lot of unnecessary time. Because, projects will take as much time as you will give them. And that's a piece that I've really tried to become more aware of. And again, I'll share just a personal example because that's really all I can share. But back to our move across the road from the church, I would come to the church sometimes with Jaron in the morning when he would come to school. We would just walk across the road, and I would come in, and I could keep myself busy here all day and walk home with Jaron at the end of school and then tackle all the stuff. And I did that for a while. And then when I would get home, in the back of my mind, I'd be going, okay, so what did you do at the church today? What did you do? And I'm thinking, what I did at the church today could have been done in a fraction of the amount of time. But I was giving it this allotted amount of time, and it was taking it. So I just thought, you know what? We're going to change that. So I just started implementing some very simple things. I would try to, give my house a little bit of attention, get a few things organized, get a little plan in place, so that if my day took off on me, I didn't come home in a panic, walking back into the mess that I left in the morning, so that I just, and I stumbled across an article that was so helpful for me. So I'm going to just share it because maybe it'll just be helpful for someone else. But it was just simply called The Power of 15 Minutes. And you know what? I'm going to share because I had to start implementing it. So there are 4 15-minute segments in an hour. And you will amaze yourself at what you or your children can accomplish in 15 minutes. So if you give yourself 10 hours for sleep, which I feel is pretty generous in most situations, maybe people in Arkansas get 10 to 12 hours a night. Maybe they do. If they do, I'm coming.
I was thinking maybe y'all get way more sleep not having very many people there and being such a small town. If you
Oh.
if you're from FBC and LR and you get 10 hours of sleep at night, I don't know what church you're going to and what functions. I feel like we always have something going on here, and I don't feel like anyone's getting 10 hours of sleep. If you're a mom getting 10 hours of sleep, who are your children? What are you feeding them?
Exactly. We want to talk to you, right?
Yes.
So with taking 10 hours for sleep, a 14-hour day has 56 15-minute increments in it. So that's a lot of opportunity and time slots to get things done. So when I started implementing that little plan for my house, that's exactly what I did. I gave myself 15 minutes in my kitchen, 15 minutes in the bathroom, bedroom, getting that all freshened up, 15 minutes to just get laundry rolling, and 15 minutes to kind of get a plan in place for what we were going to have for our evening meal. And so I delayed myself 1 hour from coming over to the church. But it changed so much about my day. So much about my day. And when I went home, I felt so much better. And you know what? I got as much or more done. Because there's that, okay, it's already, say it's 11 o'clock and I only have, so we got to get this done. We got to get this done. And I started putting some boundaries around, and you know what? It didn't change what I was accomplishing. It just changed how I was accomplishing it. And when you're ahead of the curve instead of chasing it, there's just a much different feel. There's a much different atmosphere in your home. There's a much more settled, it just changes. So I literally set a timer. So I designated 15 minutes to the certain jobs that we talked about. And so then I use this system and often. If I've got an ugly, yucky job, I'll set a timer. I'll give myself 15 minutes. And when the timer goes off, I'm done. I back away. There's times when it just overwhelms you and overruns you and you can't back away because it was way worse than what you thought it was going to be. But I try to just go, you know what? No, I'm not letting this eat my whole day. I'm going to give it 15 minutes. And it's amazing what you can do in a closet or in a pantry or in 15 minutes. And then you go, wow, like I'm impressed. That was, but it only took 15 minutes. If I look at that and think that is a 3-day job and I don't have 3 days to designate to that, I'll never touch it. But I just started trying to, 15 minutes dedicated without distraction will do a lot. And 15 minutes in dedicated prayer will do a lot to turn your day around. I've been in the middle of a day before when I didn't have an hour. I live across the road from the church. It just wasn't even feasible for me to run across the road. But getting down on my knees right in the kitchen for 15 minutes can transform a day. And it's been something that has worked for me. If I've got supper ready and, it's cooking or it's whatever, and, we're going to be eating in about 15 minutes, I try to consciously think, okay, what can I do right now? What can I designate this 15 minutes to that's going to make a difference that I don't have to do after supper? If I can get it done before supper, then I don't have to do, maybe, do you call your evening meal supper?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll refer, we're going to have supper at 4:00 and people will be like, what is that? And I was like, okay, that's our evening meal.
We've
We
heard,
do
we've
like,
heard it called supper as well, or we'll say like lunch and dinner a lot of times, but a lot of people here in the South will say supper.
okay. After I said it, I was like, oh, I better clarify this. She might be like, what is he talking about? But yeah, so I'm sure you're very familiar with the book, Eat That Frog. My husband did a session on that.
Yes, I actually was thinking about that while you were talking about that power of 15 minutes. I was going to say that is so much like Eat That Frog, like just getting it done. My husband talks about that often.
And it really, you got to do it. And, I've tried to drill this into my son. Like, you got to do it. So it's up to you to choose when you're going to do it and how you're going to do it. And there's some things the longer you leave, the worse they are. And there's some things the longer you leave, they're just, it's just the same. And there's those mundane things that nobody enjoys doing. But if you can say, look, I'm going to eat this up in 15 minutes, who doesn't have 15 minutes? So if you actually take a spreadsheet or a sheet and break at one day down in 15-minute increments, and then just fill in how you spend the day, you might be shocked in different ways. You might be shocked to go, you know what? I really am accomplishing more than what I think that I am. I think we're hardest on ourselves because we set too many goals in place. Or you can be surprised by going, wow, I didn't realize I was wasting that much time. Because my thoughts on 15 minutes were that wasn't very much time. And so it wasn't worth it. If I only had 15 minutes, then why bother? Until I saw what can happen in 15 minutes. 15 minutes can do a lot. So you don't think 15 minutes is much time until you're sitting in a dentist chair or on a rough airplane ride or waiting on a certain phone call 15 minutes feels like an eternity. But 15 minutes can go really fast if you're scrolling on your phone or doing a leisure activity that you enjoy or something like that. 15 minutes can really fly. So, we've done it before. And then if you think about this, and I mean, with you, Sister Herndon, you've got 3 children. So if all 4 of you tackle something for 15 minutes, you're giving it an hour's worth of energy. And you can make it fun. You can make just about anything fun for 15 minutes. But if you tell your kids, this is going to take the rest of the afternoon, it's kind of hard to keep the motivation up unless they're different children.
They're not.
But, if we all work at it together, that is the key. My son loved doing just about anything if I did it with him. He looked at it. So if we do it all together for 15 minutes, and then we can go to grandma's, or then we can go do this, or then we can go do that. It's amazing what your kids can do in 15 minutes. So that piece really just kind of helped me learn to grab little pieces of time when I had them and start making it work. I was the type of person that wanted to get up and, clean the whole house before lunch and have it all done. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Like the days that I have a full uninterrupted day in my house to just go through and clean my whole house, it's not going to happen. So you know what? I'm going to tackle her 15 minutes at a time. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to move and do that. And I'm going to, and eventually I'll come back around and make the loop. But that was just something that was very manageable. And then I think something else that we talked about, Sister Herndon, was, and I don't know if you're familiar with the book that Lisa Turkhurst wrote about the best yes.
I've not heard of that, but whenever you sent that over, I'm like, I've got to get it.
It's been so long, literally so long since I actually read the book, because I was reading that book during the transition when we made that move. So there's just a few principles, and I need to go back and read it again. But there was just a few principles that stuck out to me. And sometimes you can read it's like reading the Bible. You can read the Bible when you're in a certain situation, and you're like, I didn't even know that verse was there. I did not know that was in the Bible. And, we've read through the Bible, like read the Bible through in a year. And, you'll get into some of those books in the Bible that I just personally don't find super inspiring. And then we would come to church and my husband would get up and preach this message. And I'm like, we are reading the same Bible. And like, I didn't get that. Like, I just read right over that. But there's sometimes when it'll just illuminate because of where you are. And I think that's what happened with this book, just because of where I was at. And managing people and operations, being very involved. And I'm sure you're very involved in your church, in your school. You know what it's like. It's never a lack for things to do. And by reason of your comment about the sleep, I feel like we're on the same page. There's always something to do. So it's not the lack of something to do. It's deciding what is my best yes for today. And you know what? It can be the demands of other people choosing, okay, in this line of things, what's my best yes? It can be personal in all the things that I want to do. What is my best yes? It's not, my personal struggle is not between the right and the wrong things to do. It's all good things. And what is the best yes of all the things I could say yes to today? That requires a lot of, and from personal experience, it's usually not the things that you would naturally gravitate to. Like, there are things that would be maybe my preference or I enjoy more, but they're not the best yes for me. And part of there's a deal in that book talking about, I don't know if they actually use this term, but about lightening the load. Like there's just times when you've just got to lighten the load. And if I could use a visual definition of that, it's kind of like a lady's purse. Every once in a while, my purse gets so heavy, so heavy. And I just think, okay, I'm done. I'm done. And I will take it and I'll literally dump it upside down on the kitchen counter and go, today is D-Day. And I'll go through that purse and I'll be like, what is this? Like, who gave this to me? Like, what was that for? So obviously there was a time in the last few weeks that was important and necessary, but today, not. I'm going to move it. Maybe at another time I'll have to put it back in my purse. But today, no. I can't. I can't be weighted down by things that are not propelling me towards my mission, towards my best yes for today. The things I need to do the job that I've been given today, I don't want them buried in the bottom of my purse covered with things that are useless, like expired coupons. Coupons are great, but if they're expired, they need to go so that I can get new coupons. Or I've got it. And I know that's a very practical, but that's really how you have to go about it in your own heart and in your own soul. What am I carrying around? Like, who gave this to me? Where did I pick it up? Like, why? And a lot of times, the most overwhelmed, maybe stressful moments in my life, there's been a lot of things contributing to that I put on myself. Nobody else put that on me. I put it on myself. And you know what? In itself, it probably would have been very doable. But piled on with all the other things that are in the basket or in the heart or it's just too much. And then I am not being my best anywhere because I'm so laden down. It's better to do 3 things well a day than 30 things that never get finished or never get accomplished or never benefit anyone. And so there's a couple things out of that book that just really, really resonated, and I wrote them down. Saying yes all the time, and it's hard to say no. It's hard. And you kind of think, well, like, they really need me or they really, but you know what? I can't rescue everyone. It's just not physically possible. I can't. So somebody's going to get a no. So I might as well be intentional on where I place the no's and where I pick up the yeses. Saying yes all the time to everything and everybody won't make me Wonder Woman. It will make me worn out woman. And then I'm of no benefit to my family. I'm of no benefit to the church. I'm of no benefit to new converts. I'm of no benefit to my friends because I'm worn out trying to say yes to everything and losing that intentionality and that effectiveness where it needs to be. There's a couple statements that again are from that book that just, they're heavy, but an overwhelmed schedule leads to an underwhelmed soul. So if you can learn to underwhelm your schedule so that God can overwhelm your soul, you will live a much more productive life. And you know what? That's difficult, but it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding. It's been proven that many times the things we are doing on a daily basis that we feel are so important and overwhelm our schedule often have little effect on anyone else or the big picture. And I'm going to be very vulnerable here and share something that's like a joke in my house. So we're getting ready to go on a trip. And if you leave out of Presque Isle, Maine here, you're leaving the house at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to get there to catch the early morning flight because there's only one flight a day. So you don't have options. She's that one or nothing. So my husband and my son are in the car all ready to go and they're laughing and I can hear them. Yeah, hear that? That's mom. She's got to put that one towel and one washcloth in the dryer. Can't leave no dirty clothes behind. Can't leave any garbage left, not gathered up. Can't leave any floors left unclean. And I'm standing there going, you know what? They're absolutely right. This is affecting absolutely nobody but me. And I got up an extra 30 minutes early because I thought all this stuff was so important. And they're out there laughing at me. They really don't care if they come home and there's one towel and one washcloth hanging over the hamper because, we used it before we jumped in the car. And I'm overwhelming my schedule for something that doesn't matter. And you know what? I'm sure there's ladies that can relate. I think it's a woman thing. You don't want to come home to a mess. But in that moment, I just started laughing and I got in the car and I'm like, you know what, guys, you're absolutely right. That was like useless. Like, what does that matter in the big picture? Nothing. I personally felt better just knowing it was done. When I come home, it's going to be, but oh, and I often think of that old song, "Oh, what peace we often forfeit, and oh, what needless pain we bear, all because we do not carry everything to God in prayer." And you know what? The only way that I've personally found that you can really get into that place where you can offload some of that stuff is prayer. Prayer is the place where you can realign to what God wants and help you go, you know what? That's really not important. That's really not. There's a verse that I read a few weeks ago, and I've read it a lot, but it's in Psalms, and I'm just going to read it to you out of the Amplified because this one piece really, really stuck out. Cast your burden. It's Psalms 55:22. And this is the Amplified version. Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain and uphold you, I think is what it says in the King James Version. So in the Amplified, it said, cast your burden on the Lord. And in brackets, it said, release it. And you know what? Unless I've got down on my knees before and felt like I cast things on the Lord. And when I got up, I just politely picked them all back up and took them back with me. Like it was the thing to do. And when I read that scripture, it's like, no, you've got to cast it on the Lord and then release it. You've got to take that grip and let it go, or he can't help you. He can't help you unless you release it. And the rest of the verse says, he will sustain and uphold you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken. And then in brackets, never allow them to slip, fall, or fail. What a promise. What a promise. And humanly, it's hard. It's very hard to let go because sometimes we're comforted by the stuff we have around us that we've got, it's our comfort. It's our comfort zone. But the release, the strength that comes from being able to let go of that and give it to God and let him help you lighten the load. The purse demonstration is easy because that's just all carnal, natural things. But when you get talking about your internal purse, you have to let God help you sort that.
Yes, we do. Talking about that reminds me of something that our Bishop Holmes often says. And he says, through life, you pick up suitcases and you have those things in that luggage that you're carrying around. It's just life. He said, but whenever you are with God and you're with him, you get on an elevator And he said it's like someone carrying luggage and they get on the elevator and their arms are heavy and the load's heavy and they never set the suitcase down. And they're being carried by the elevator, but they wanna just hold those suitcases and hold that load the whole time. He's like, "But you can get on an elevator of life and you can just set the suitcases down. God carries it all. He'll carry your load. He'll carry" yes, life does happen. We have these things, like you said, we have time that we have to say yes to something. There are things that even though it's all good, there are still things that can overwhelm us and things that can happen in life. But whenever you're taking that time to pray and you're taking that time to give it to God and release it, that amplified version of that scripture is so powerful, that part about release it. I've never read it like that, and that's incredible to think about that we can release it, but if we don't, like you said, you get up from prayer and you just take it with you. We never we release it, we cast it to God, but we don't release it. We pull it back with us and we take off, and it's like walking through life and we're on that elevator, we've got God with us, but we just won't let it down. We won't set it down and allow God to carry it.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that illustration.
And what are some practical tips that you may would give to someone who feels like they're always busy, but they're never productive? Because that can happen so easily, I feel like, where I'm busy, I've been running around doing things all day, but yet whenever you get to the end of the day, it feels like, what have I done?
Absolutely. And we all have days. But, you know, the decisions that you make determine the schedule that you keep. So, in those moments when you're busy but not productive, you need, and again, this isn't always. There are many days, I've been through weeks, I've been through months where my schedule was not my own and there really wasn't anything I could do about it. I want to be very clear on that. We all live in those moments where you're just busy, but you're not productive and you feel like you're not productive. But I don't think all the time you're not productive because I think a lot of times we gauge productivity on visual. We want to see the production. There are those times when you're being productive that is not visual. There are times when your children just need emotional support from you. Nobody sees that. Nobody applauds that. Nobody praises that. But that is probably some of the most productive moments that if you were to ask your children in their adult years, they'll go back and reference those moments where your mind is spinning with the 100,000 things you need to be doing and the laundry's overrun and the dishes are piled up and my husband's going to be home and I don't have any supper prepared and you find yourself on the couch with a child in tears pouring their heart out to you. That's productivity, but it's just not visible maybe in so, we've all had those moments. And then, there's times when you literally don't know what did I do all day? Like, and it can be, we don't struggle with this. And, I count it a blessing. We don't get caught in traffic. I can be to the grocery store and back in 10 minutes, easy, with my groceries and back. Because we don't have door delivery here, or no, we have to go get it. So I can do that. So I really can't blame it on I got stuck in traffic. But it can be things like that. I got stuck in traffic. Things out of your control that you can't fix. But the decisions that you make determine the schedule you keep, and the schedule you keep determines the life you live. So sometimes when you just feel like I'm busy, but I'm not being productive, maybe go back and write out your day in 15-minute increments. See if there's a place where you could grab yourself some time or, and in the midst of those moments when you feel very frustrated, sometimes just taking 15 minutes and doing nothing helps recalibrate and you're much more productive when you go back at it. Go outside for 15 minutes or drink a cup of tea or, just don't just do nothing to kind of, it's like a jump start. And then you can go, oh, okay, you know what? I think we can I think they call it writer's block when they write and write and write and write, and all of a sudden they get writer's block. Well, I think that block happens in whatever you're doing, house cleaning block. Whew, I've had that. Like, oh, I need a little breather. Um, and then back to that statement, if you can underwhelm your schedule so that God can overwhelm your soul, that will help you feel more productive. That will help you feel more productive.
Thinking about those 15-minute increments too, and talking about, allowing God to overwhelm your soul is making sure carving that time out whenever you have it written out like that. I'm thinking of so many things that I could write out to be able to do in 15 minutes. Going for a walk. You think that you need a full hour and this long regimen and all this stuff, but 15 minutes. Everyone can set their timer for 15 minutes and just go outside and get a walk in fresh air.
Absolutely.
Even in this Arkansas humidity and heat, I can last maybe
Maybe 15 minutes.
for 15 minutes. That I'm thinking of all the things, but also, your Bible reading, your daily Bible reading. You can get that done in your 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
And talking about, praying. Sometimes you may not have a full hour, and I am so guilty of doing this, of thinking, well, I don't really have a lot of time right now, so then I'll make up for it and I'll take the time later. And I do take the time later, but I'm also thinking about all the times that I do have 15 minutes, I do have 20 minutes, and taking that time and allowing the Lord, because there are times throughout your day that you just feel so busy. And like you said, you feel overwhelmed. And you had said at the very beginning of this podcast, talking about whenever you feel all those things, and then you'll start feeling frustrated because time's getting away and I need to do this and I need to do that. And then you start feeling those frustrations whenever really, if you just stopped for 15 minutes and said, you know what? I'm going to give this to God. I'm going to release it and allow Him to recalibrate us. And He will. He'll bring peace that only He can bring. He has help that only He can give, and strength that only He can give to make it through those times and through those moments throughout our day. And taking that 15 minutes and saying, God, I'm going to give you 15 minutes because I need your help right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And allow Him to overwhelm our soul. That is so beautiful. I love that saying. I'm going to use that. Everything that you have said today has been so good. I knew that we would glean so much from everything that you had, the wisdom that you have shared with us. I know this is a podcast that I personally needed so much, and I'm so glad that you offered all these tips and help for us, and the encouragement that you gave us that we can do it. We can slot up our day in those 15-minute increment times, and that not to be overwhelmed, that God can help us. But what is one last thing that you would want to leave with the Unashamedly You community today?
Oh, wow. I think in light of what we've been talking about, perspective is a powerful thing. And you can look at it as, well, I've only got 15 minutes. Or you can look at it, you know what? I have 15 minutes. What can I accomplish? And just that simple adjustment in perspective can change your productivity. And, I think our perspective is maybe what I struggle with a lot. It's we're so caught in the moment and the here and now and today, when we're living for eternity with Jesus. That is what we are living every day for. We're not living today just for today. We are living today in preparation for what is to come. And you know what? I want to keep my focus on that. When my focus is on eternity, it does change how I live today. It does change. And you know what? We want to hear Jesus say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." I don't believe we get to stand in front of Jesus with the list of, I got these 75 things done today. He's just looking for that faithfulness in what He called you to do. And you know what? We're the ones that size things up. Well, I think what I'm doing is very small. If it's what God asked you to do, it's very big. It's the thing he wants you to do. It's the thing he called you for. So keep the main goal always in view. That allows you to help. And if you can keep the main goal in view, that will allow you more margin in your life to not only hear from God, but accomplish the things that you were chosen to do and the things that have eternal impact.
God help us to allow those margins where he can speak. There's times in our day when we're overwhelmed and the day feels busy and we've got this to do, this to do, this to do, and we don't leave that time for him and for him to speak.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
And he's talking to us more than what we think throughout our day, through our children, through things that are going on throughout our day. He's there, he's speaking, he's trying to get our attention through different things, and I want to be aware.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been reading a book, one of Corey ten Boom's books. Um, and it's one that's a compilation of just like a lot of different chapters and whatever. But oh my, hearing that, you know, that reliance on God. And she's got a chapter that's called Don't Wrestle, Just Nestle. And I'm like, how many times have I tried to wrestle through something when if I would have nestled and let God walk me through it, I would have saved myself so much grief. And I only read a little bit at a time because I'm just like, oh, this is heavy stuff. Thinking about what she went through and where she probably was when she's writing this stuff. And I just think, oh man, yeah.
Well, everything that you said, like I had said earlier, it's been so good. There's so much to glean here. Thank you again for being on the podcast with us on Unashamedly You. And maybe we'll hear you some on Kingdom Speak soon as well, now that he knows that you're a podcaster and how amazing that you were.
Cool. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Make sure to enter our summer giveaway and win an Unashamedly You tumbler. It's so simple. Share our podcast to your social media and tag us, and you can be entered as many times as you share the podcast. We're going to be drawing the winner on July the 31st and announcing the winner on Friday, August 1st. This community was created to bring encouragement to you, and you are giving it to others by sharing a podcast that has blessed or helped you along the way. Go be unashamedly you.